The US government shutdown led by Chuck Schumer is dragging into its 40th day, and people are really starting to feel it. Federal employees are now into their second month of not being paid, people who live off food stamps are going hungry, and the skies are in chaos with increasingly delayed and cancelled flights due to air traffic controllers not working. And just hours ago, Treasury Secretary Bessent confirmed that this is only the start. He said that economic growth will halve if the government is not opened back up.
We've seen an impact on the economy from day one, but it's getting worse and worse. We had a fantastic economy under President Trump the past 2 quarters, and now there are estimates that the economic growth for this quarter could be cut in by as much as half if the shutdown continues. And what your correspondent didn't talk about there, George, was there's, of course, the human cost, and we're going to have the busiest travel day of the year, the day after Thanksgiving. And Americans should look to 5 Democratic senators to come across the aisle to open that. But on the other side, there's also cargo is being slowed down. So, we could end up with shortages, whether it's in our supply chains, whether it's for the holidays. So, cargo and people are both being slowed down here, and that's for safety's sake, George.
And cracks are already showing, with dozens of flights backed up and waiting to depart due to the air traffic controller shortage in the wake of the government shutdown.
Hey, John, the delays and cancellations just continue to accumulate, and it's expected to get worse throughout the week. So the order that the FAA put out cancels 4% of domestic flights at 40 airports across the country, including here at LaGuardia right now. That number is going to increase to 10% of flights on Friday of this week, and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says that it could get up to 20%, so 1 out of every 5 flights in the next couple weeks if nothing changes. But the Trump administration is getting sort of creative now, potentially tapping into military reserves. Today, the Transportation Secretary said the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said they could tap into those reserves for emergency air traffic controllers, but the administration is still figuring out if that's something they can actually do.
And not only air traffic controllers are not turning up to work, but they are retiring in record numbers, looking elsewhere to get jobs to feed their families, according to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy.
I paid experienced controllers to stay on the job and not retire. I used to have about 4 controllers retire a day before the shutdown. I'm now up to 15 to 20 a day are retiring. So it's going to be harder for me to come back after the shutdown and have more controllers controlling the airspace. So this is going to live on in air travel well beyond the time frame that this government opens back up.
As well as hardworking federal employees not being paid, the poorest Americans are now going without food, as SNAP benefits are paused due to the shutdown, leading to long lines at food banks.
I'm here because they took the SNAP benefit away from my mom and my handicapped brother. And this is my first time in the pantry. I've been here since 8 o'clock this morning. And there's like maybe 45 people in front of me. And I'm just here for the first time. I don't know what they're going to give, but at least it will help me out to help them, because they took their SNAP benefits away, and stuff are expensive.
And whilst average Americans are going without pay and food, the Democrats are not facing the same struggles, voting to block the No Budget, No Pay Act that would stop their payments until the government is reopened.
These Democrats voting to shut down government are still getting paid. We should not get paid if we don't do our job. There's a problem with Washington. Any working American will tell you that if you don't do your job, you don't get paid, except here. Members of Congress consistently fail one of our basic duties of funding the government on time and still get a paycheck, even when others don't. Senate Democrats have now voted against funding the government 14 times in the last 5 weeks. They voted time and time again to continue the longest shutdown in our nation's history and stopping people from getting paid.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump is not relenting to the ridiculous demands of the Democrats, instead encouraging the termination of the filibuster so the Republicans can pass their policies.
Is there any room for bipartisanship? Because it seems like that's the main purpose of the filibuster, is to create some sort of compromise.
Well, it didn't work, obviously.
So So how
You're
do you
right.
encourage
That was the purpose
bipartisanship?
of the filibuster, bipartisanship, but that didn't work.
So are you saying the next 3 years in Washington there shouldn't be?
Well, no.
If
If the filibuster is terminated, we will have the most productive 3 years in the history of our country. If the filibuster is not terminated, then we will be in a slog with the Democrats, and very little for either party will be.
But there may be some hope. Axios is reporting that a deal is currently being negotiated to end the shutdown, confirming a handful of Senate Democrats on Sunday indicated they are ready to advance a package of bills that could end the government shutdown. Axios added, "It is the most significant movement towards a bipartisan breakthrough in the talks to reopen the government since the start of the shutdown." And the pressure is on, particularly as Thanksgiving approaches, says United States Studies Center associate Harry Melican.
The pressure is becoming intense right now on the president because keep in mind that the biggest travel day of the entire year in America is focused on Thanksgiving, which is later this month, the 27th. And that is the biggest air traffic period in the United States. And for there to be a substantial cutback in domestic travel would be catastrophic and would put enormous pressure on the White House and on the Congress. You see, this government shutdown has now reached the point where it is touching every American. For the first few weeks, it didn't because most government activities like post office, Medicare, and Social Security are separately funded. So it didn't affect the average citizen. But now it is. And the public is not going to be very forgiving about this, particularly not about Thanksgiving when you've got millions of people who want to fly home for the holidays.